Hello guys, this is Paul McWhorter with TopTechBoy.com, and we are coming to you today from the headwaters of the mighty River Nile. And we're here to bring you episode number 2 in our incredible new tutorial series where you're going to learn how to make Arduino and Python work together. What I'm going to need you to do is pour yourself a nice tall glass of ice cold coffee. That would be straight up black coffee poured over ice, no sugar, no sweeteners, none needed. And as you're pouring your coffee, as always, I want to give a shout out to you guys who are helping me out over at Patreon. It is your support and your encouragement that keeps this great content coming. You guys that are not helping out yet, take a look down in the description. There is a link over to my Patreon account. Think about hopping on over there and hooking a brother up. But enough of this shameless self-promotion. Let's talk about what I am going to teach you today. What this series of lessons is about is it's about how to make Arduino and Python work together. What I am assuming is that you are already familiar with Arduino. I'm assuming that you have your Arduino IDE already installed, that you know how to download programs, you know how to do simple things in Arduino. If that's not the case, you need to go back to my Arduino playlist and you need to watch at least the first 4 or 5 lessons, okay? But I'm assuming that you're familiar with that. So what we're going to do today is we are going to get our Python configured for this entire class. So all the subsequent videos and lessons in this class are going to be based on the configuration that I'm doing today. Now, you might already have Python installed, but you still need to go back and get everything configured just like I show you. If you do what I show you today, all the future lessons are going to work. If you don't, and you're running some different version of Python or some different configuration, very likely you're going to run into some difficulties along the way. So enough of this introductory banter. Let me get out of your way and let me switch over. This is a live shot, by the way. You're looking at this live right out my window of the great River Nile. But I digress. Let's come over here and let's move over to the most excellent DuckDuckGo, and then let's search on download Python. Okay, and then the first result here is this python.org downloads. That looks like a good choice. Now, very important, you don't want to use Python 3.10 because Python 3.10 presently does not work with Visual Python, with VPython. So we need to download version 3.9.9. So you need to come over here to Windows, click on that, and then you come down to Python 3.9.9. I am on a 64-bit Windows machine, so I'm going to click on Windows Installer 64-bit. Now, this is a fairly small file, so it should download quickly. And look, I believe it is already downloaded, so now we're going to click here to install. So I click one time, and now it comes up. And it asks me, do you want to install Launcher for all users? I think that's good, so we'll select that. And very, very important, you want to add Python 3.9 to the path. It's very important that you check that second box. And now we are going to say install now. One of the biggest problems that people have is their Python program is not in the environmental paths. And then if you're using it inside of an IDE, it gets lost. It can't find Python. You think, well, I installed Python. Yeah, you did, but your system doesn't know where it is. Okay, we are almost installed here, and boom, setup was successful. That's what we want to hear. So we see that we should now have Python installed. But now the thing is, just because you installed the new version, if you have an old version of Python on your system and maybe you don't even know it's there, or maybe you installed it and forgot about it, when you type Python or another program tries to use Python, it might not run the version that you just installed. It might run the old version, and that causes a lot of pain and a lot of confusion. So I need you to go to your Windows search bar, and I need you to type in ENV. And And then you should have pop up here this option to edit the system environment variables. So we're going to do that. And this pops up. You need to come down to environmental variables, click on that. And now you need to come to path right here. And then you need to say edit. Now what you can see is you have all these different lines possibly in your environmental paths. The thing is that, like you can see, I have Python 3.8, 3.7, 3.6, 3.9 all installed. If I just type in Python, or if a program tries to run Python, which one does it run? It runs the first one that's listed in the environmental variables. Now, luckily, you can see that my Python 3.9 and my Python 3.9 scripts are at the top. But for you, if they're not at the top, you need to click on it and then move up, move up, move up. You see, move up, move up, move up until it moves to the top. So use the move up button to make sure that Python 3.9 and Python 3.9 scripts are at the top of your environmental variables. Then you need to click OK, and then you need to click OK, and then you need to click OK. 3 OKs, thrice OK. And that way you make sure that those changes stick, because sometimes people will move on without hitting their 3 OKs, and then later on they will run into problems because it didn't really stick. Now we want you to come down to your Windows search bar again in the lower left and type in CMD for the command prompt. All right. Now here in the command prompt, I need you to type Python. Okay. And boom, look at that. It called up Python 3.9.9. Why? When I have all those different versions of Python installed, it ran this one because it was the first one entered in the path. Okay, so now we have Python installed. Next thing we want to do is install our integrated development environment. And the one that I like best is Visual Studio Code. So we're going to come up here and we're going to search on download Visual Studio Code, like that. And then here we have download Visual Studio Code. It's code.visualstudio.com. That looks like the right one, so we will click there. Okay. I am on a 64-bit Windows machine. I want the user install under Windows. I want 64-bit. So I'm going to click there, and now it will begin downloading. It takes you to a new page, but never fear. If you look in the lower left here, you can see that it is downloading. I'm sorry that my voice is a little dry and scratchy. I did the long live stream this morning, and this is my third attempt to make this video. I ran into a few snags along the way. So I have been talking all day and my voice is a little tired, but I hope you'll just bear with me on it. I really try to not clear my throat because I know it's annoying. Okay, we are just about downloaded. It looks like the Visual Studio has downloaded the exe file, and we will click on that. And then we should have pop up the agreement to the terms and conditions. I accept. I have no idea what I'm accepting. I could be accepting that I will donate my left kidney to Microsoft should it be needed for Bill Gates or other executives. I don't know what I'm agreeing to, but I'm going to live dangerously and I'm going to accept the agreement. Click next. And yes, that's a fine location. That's fine. I'll click next. And then wants to create a shortcut. Okay, that's good to have a shortcut. And now register the code for the editor supported types. That's good. Check that. And add to path. Okay, that is good too. You really need that. You really need that in the path. So you want these environmental variables in the path, just like on Python. And then I also like a desktop icon. So I'll click that. Now we'll say next. And now we're ready for the big install. This usually goes pretty quickly, so hopefully we'll get this thing installed in no time at all. Okay, and now it says launch Visual Studio Code. That sounds good, so I'm going to go ahead and finish. and then this thing boots up into a fresh new Visual Studio Code. Okay, the first thing that I want to do is I really want to get on the color scheme that I like. And the color scheme that I like, you can come to File, and then you can come to Preferences, and then you come over to Color Theme. And the color theme that I like is Mono K. So you can select that, and that is a really cool color scheme to program in Python on. So we've got the color scheme set up. That's good. Now the next thing that we need to do is we need to open a working folder. Now you might already have a working folder. If you're taking my artificial intelligence classes, you might already have Visual Studio, you might already have a working folder, but we're going to create a different one for this class. So how do we do that? We come over here and we say File, and then we say Open Folder, and you panic and say, I haven't created a folder yet. Trust the plan. Just trust the plan and say Open Folder, and let me try that again. So we come over here and we say Open Folder. Okay, right there, Open Folder. And then you come here, and I'm going to go to my Documents folder, and now I'm going to create a new folder. To do that, you don't want to highlight something in blue. You want to come just to the right where you're not highlighting something, out here to the right a little bit, right mouse click, and then you want to say New what? New folder. And now I'm going to name this Pi Arduino, like that, Pi Arduino with an uppercase A, and then I'm going to click Enter. Okay, I'm going to click Enter. That creates the folder. Now I want to select it and then say Select Folder. Okay, boom. Now you can see what happens over here. I now have this new folder, Pi Arduino, and that is my working folder for this series of lessons. And I think that is really cool and really neat. So we now have a place to put our programs, a place to work in. Okay, now this is the next thing that is important. We want to operate in a virtual environment, because with the Python that we just installed, if we're installing libraries, we might do something that might goof up Python. So we want to be in a virtual environment so we don't mess up our main Python environment. How do you do that? It is really pretty easy. Let's come up here and say View and open a terminal. Okay, so we've got a terminal. This is kind of like that command prompt earlier. Now let's just see if this is recognizing the path now. So I'm just going to type here Python just to see if this would open up the right Python, and it doesn't. Okay, so I'm going to say quit like that, and then I am going to close this. Okay, and then I am going to open it. Sometimes it's going back to the cache. We've got to get it where it's recognizing that most recent thing that we did, that most recent Python that we installed. One thing I'm going to do is I'm going to bring this icon down to my start bar. Okay, and so now I should be able to just click it here. Okay, and now it is thinking, opening up and thinking. Okay, let me try that again, because it's not, it might be that I'd have to do a system reboot, but I'm hoping that I don't have to reboot. But let me just type in Python again here, down here, and still it is in that. So the problem is Visual Studio Code is not reading the path. It's like using the cache. And so what I have to do is I have to make sure that I force it. I have to make sure that I force it to use Python 3.9.9. Now, what is true is if you reboot and come back tomorrow, it's probably going to know it already. But today we're going to have to force it. And let's just make sure we can force it. And the way we would force it is I would say py for Python and then minus 3.9 like that, and that should force it into Python 3.9, and boom, there it is, Python 3.9.9. Okay, very good. I'm going to quit out of that. Now I think still it's going to do the wrong one here until we reboot. Yeah, so we're going to have to do the forcing. Now what we need to do is we need to create our virtual environment, and we want to make sure that we create the virtual environment with Python 3.9. So the way we're going to create that virtual environment is I'm going to say pi and then minus 3.9. So that's going to force it to create a 3.9. And then I need to put minus m. Okay, and then I need to put VENV, like that, VENV, all right, and now I need to give my virtual environment a name, and I'm going to call it Pi ARD, as opposed to my working folder over there, which is Pi Arduino. Inside that working folder is going to be my virtual environment, Pi ARD. So let's click that and see what happens. Okay, it looks like it likes it. Now let's see if we can activate that. And the way we would activate it is we would tell it go to Pi ARD, that's the folder that we just created, slash, pay attention to the direction of that slash. It's the one underneath the apostrophe, the one with the question mark. Got to make it go the right way. And then scripts with an uppercase S, and then activate. Okay, and boom, you can see that we're now in the Pi ARD virtual environment. Now this I should just be able to type Python, and inside this virtual environment it should go to the right one, and boom, it does 3.9.9. So quit, like that, and you can see that I'm in this virtual environment. And now in this version of Python, in this virtual environment, this is where we want to put our libraries. Okay, the first library that we are going to need is PySerial. So I need to say pip install PySerial. And make sure that you do this installation. Make sure you do this installation with your virtual environment activated like that. Okay, now I click enter. And let's hope this works. Getting a little nervous that it's making me wait here. Okay. Okay, it looks like it installed it, so that looks good. And it's giving me a warning that it thinks I should upgrade pip, but don't worry about that. It did say what we care about, successfully installed PySerial. Now the next thing that we want to install is we want to install Visual Python. So similarly, I need to do a pip install vPython, like that, pip install vPython. And so we'll hit that, and let's see. I hope that it goes out and starts finding things and installing them. Always makes me a little nervous when it sits here and just pauses like that. Okay, it looks like that it is downloading and collecting and stuff as it's doing that. Maybe we can come back over here and look at the beautiful river view, enjoy a little view of the river as we are getting Visual Python installed. Mine is going along pretty quickly. Hopefully yours is chugging along as well. Let's take a look at it. Okay. Looks like it is getting everything it needs, moving along happily. I like to kind of watch the installs and downloads, make sure that I don't see a lot of red errors and that it looks like I'm getting a clean install. Looks like I am getting a really clean install here. This does take a couple of minutes to get done. Always get nervous when I get these long pauses like this. Like I say, this is my third time to try to make this video today. The first time I had a problem, my system went down in the middle of the video, and then the second time I tried to do it with version 3.10 of Python, and I found out Visual Python right now doesn't run with Python 3.10. Okay. I'm not going to panic. This thing has seemed, oh, okay, running setup py install for, okay, that looks good. All right, it looks like it is installed, and I just got the warning about pip. I didn't get any other errors or problems or anything like that. And so now let's come over here. We are still in our virtual environment. And so what I am going to do now is I'm going to type Python like that, and boom, we've got Python 3.9.9 like we like. Let's make sure that we got the PySerial installed. So I'm going to say import serial. and boom, it imported serial without any errors. And then I'm going to say from the Python import star, and let's hope that that works, and boom. So I can import the two libraries that I installed, and that means basically we have things configured correctly. Now what we need to do is we need to make sure now that Visual Studio Code is using our Python interpreter, which is inside of that virtual environment, which is the thing that we just got all set up. And so in order to do that, let's see if this, I can do this down here. No, what you need to do is you need to hold down the Control button and the Shift button. So you're holding Control, Shift, and P as in Paul. And then you need to type in Python and then a colon and a space and select. And you can see it pop up here now, Python colon select interpreter. Now I have loads and gobs of Python interpreters selected or installed, but we want to run the one that we just installed and set up, and that was what? The one that's associated with PyArdVNV. So that's 3.9.9, 64 bits in that PyArd virtual environment. So that is the one that we are going to do there. Okay, look at that. Now if you look down here, you can see that we are in the right virtual environment. Now we can come over here and how do I get that to pop open? Okay, and now you remember that PyArduino is our working folder. Okay, PyArd is our virtual environment. We don't want to put our programs in PyArd. We want to put our programs in PyArduino in this one. So I come here and then I click and I'm going to say add a new program, and this new program is going to be hello world.py, and the .py is kind of important. So we come over here, we have a fresh new Python program. Now let's just make sure everything is working right. We're going to say import serial. Why? Just we want to make sure that when we're running inside of Visual Studio that we're accessing those libraries. We are where we think we are. And then we're going to say from vPython import star, and then we're just going to say print hello world, just to make sure that we can run our first Python program. Now printing hello world does not require, it's important to spell import correctly, from vPython import star. To print hello world you don't need these two libraries, but I'm just making sure that Visual Studio is using the PyArd virtual environment down here, and that actually can load these two libraries, and that'll tell me that everything is configured correctly for the rest of the class. So let's run this. We run it and we get a hello world, boom, and we got no errors. What that means now is we are ready to rock and roll. That was our goal for today, to get Visual Studio Code configured with a virtual environment that will allow us to run PySerial and will allow us to run vPython. I hope you guys followed this, because if you don't do just what I just did, then your version of Python might not behave like mine does. Or maybe you might end up with Visual Python installed in a different version of Python from what you think it is. But if you do just what I showed today, we're going to have smooth sailing for the next however many lessons we do here, 10 or 20 or 30 or 40 classes in this series. It's going to go really smoothly if you get your Python installed just correctly. Okay, guys, this has been a little bit of a tedious lesson, but it's been an important lesson because it's important that we get these things working right. Now, what are we going to do next week? week. I'm not going to give you any homework because really there's no homework to give. We just did the basic installation. But in this series of lessons, I'm going to make it a point to every week give you a homework. And then in the next lesson, I'll show you how I solved the homework. And then I'm going to ask you guys to be posting your solutions to YouTube. So you can, on your own YouTube channel, you can post your solutions down in the description, link back to my channel, and then in the comments to the lesson, my lesson, put a link to your solution. And that way, guys, we can develop a little bit of sense of community. You can post your solutions, and then other people can look at your solutions, and you can look at other people's solutions, and we develop a little bit of a sense of community. Okay, guys. I hope you are having as much fun taking these lessons as I am making these lessons. I really look forward to next week's lesson when we get in and we actually get Arduino and Python communicating together. That is when the real fun starts. Okay, Paul McWhorter from TopTechBoy.com, coming to you from the source of the mighty River Nile. I will talk to you guys later.